in Kenya, calling for justice and accountability during a solemn interdenominational prayer service that was held at All Saints Cathedral, Nairobi, to honor youth killed during the June 25th, 2024 protests. The service brought together families of the victims, faith leaders, and members of the public in a moment of remembrance and reflection. Emotions ran high as grieving families shared personal testimonies about their lives lost during last year's nationwide demonstrations, which were largely led by Gen Z's youth protesting against economic hardship and governance issues. The clergy called for peaceful protests and urged the police to exercise restraint and respect human rights during the upcoming anniversary events. They also demanded that investigations be reopened and justice be served for the victims of the 2024 protests.
Now, to be able to call out the evils in society, we have to observe and acknowledge what is happening. Allow me to share a few things we can observe in Kenya, lest we forget. Last year, the Gen Z protests between June and August 2024 took place. The Kenya National Commission on Human Rights recorded 63 deaths, 610 injured, 1,376 arbitrary arrests, and 74 enforced disappearances, 26 of which remain unresolved. We're here to call out. We are here to acknowledge that these things have happened, lest we forget. And in the midst of this, in the aftermath of this week alone, we are reeling from the shooting of a vendor who was simply trying to earn a living. The tragedy was this tragedy took place in the context of protests meant to demand justice for Albert Ojwang, a teacher and a blogger who we all know died in police custody. We are here to acknowledge. We are here to remember. And lest we forget, the context of last year's protests was that the Finance Bill 2024 was meant to reduce external borrowing by increasing taxes. But Kenyans of all walks of life expressed their outrage because those taxes were going to be increased, yet there is no accountability for corruption. There is no accountability for wastage by our leadership. Let me say this to our elected representatives who may be seated here or listening online. Let me say this also to those who are in the uniformed services, because we are not on opposing sides. Your own children are not exempt from the crisis in this country. The people of God have gathered here overwhelmed with emotion, with a lot of sadness, and thinking about their future, their family, and people have no certainty. To you, the young people of this nation gathered here today and online, to the families, the Church of Jesus Christ has gathered in this service to say, we see your pain. We hear your anger. We hear and feel your frustration. And it is real and it is valid. That is the reason for this.
These as church leaders from various denominations across Kenya convened on Saturday morning to hold a solemn interdenominational prayer service calling for peace ahead of the planned nationwide demonstrations set for the 25th of this month. The event brought together clergy, youth, representatives, and families who lost loved ones during last year's protests, creating a reflective atmosphere focused on healing and justice. The service was held to commemorate the one-year anniversary of the Gen Z protests that took place last June. During this service, speakers urged Kenyans, especially the youth, to embrace peaceful and non-violent means of expression during the upcoming demonstration. They emphasized the need to avoid violence and hooliganism, encouraging unity and national cohesion.
Ya kwamba tarehe 25 watoto wetu wanapotoka nje kulingana constitution wana haki yao na sisi hatuingilili, ila tunaomba watoto wetu wanapotoka nje wasiharibu mali ya watu, wasiharibu biashara za watu, wakianza kutembea watembee na amani, wasichokosa askari na askari waangalie watoto wetu.
The Catholic Church in Kenya has called for reconciliation and dialogue between the government and the country's youth to prevent further division and unrest. Speaking on behalf of the church, Archbishop Anthony Muheri of Nyeri and Archbishop Philin Anyolo of the Nairobi Archdiocese emphasized the importance of mutual understanding and peaceful engagement, especially in light of recent tensions ahead of the 25th June demonstrations. The bishops also called on the government to compensate victims who have suffered harm or losses during the past protests, noting that many families continue to bear the brunt of economic hardship and trauma resulting from violent crackdowns. Archbishop Anyolo stressed that national healing and unity must be prioritized. The statement by the Catholic Church comes at a critical time as Kenya prepares for the one-year anniversary of the Gen Z-led protests, with fresh demonstrations expected. The Church's message reinforces the growing calls for non-violence, accountability, and inclusive governance.
It doesn't matter what you hold to be your goals. The most prior goal is human life, protection of human life. The most prior goal is to uplift the real needy, the poor and miserable. And above all, to accommodate, to listen to one another, to embrace one another.
Let us not be so reckless in our speeches. Politically, anywhere where you are, don't be so reckless in your speeches. We have a way to talk about it. Even in fact, it's as reflected in our national anthem, a way to talk to one another and to encourage one another to live as a nation. With these reckless speeches that we have, what in terms of politics, they're bringing us nowhere, but they're bringing us down as a country.
All right, I can see Kennedy Jumba Asirigwa has logged in. I can also see Sami M. Murunga. You say you've checked in. Karibu sana. Now, Anglican bishops from Nyanza region have called for the disbandment of Kenya Directorate of Criminal Investigations, or DCI, accusing the agency of being misused by those in power and failing in its mandate to uphold justice. Speaking in Kisumu, the clerics strongly condemned the country's security agencies, accusing them of negligence and complicity in extrajudicial killings. The bishop cited rising cases of unlawful killings and lack of accountability by security institutions as evidence of a broken system that no longer serves the interest of justice or public safety. The clergy urged the government to take urgent action to reform the country's security apparatus and ensure justice for victims of police brutality and extrajudicial violence.
Has come that a body like the DCI should be phased out. It has become a dreaded unit used by those in power to harass Kenyans. IPOA has failed Kenyans, and it is seen as a toothless dog that can't bite, but can talk louder enough to confuse the nation that it is working. Let all machineries of the state that are funded by the taxpayers be allowed to do their work without interference.
Our police, please come to terms with the fact that many Kenyans are cursing you every day because of your heartless and callous manner of dealing with the members of the public. And in this kind of behavior that has led into radicalization of our youth as they strive to resist this totalitarianism and its very many manifestations.
All right, let's now touch base with some of the politics that happened over the weekend with Democracy for Citizens Party, DCP leader Rigathi Gachagua, launching a scathing attack on President William Ruto, accusing him of organizing political chaos and undermining democratic values during his tour, during Gachagua's tour of Meru County. Speaking at AIPCA St. Mary's Church in Umburi constituency, the former deputy president claimed that President William Ruto, in collaboration with local members of parliament, mobilized youth to disrupt his three-day visit to the region. He labeled President Ruto a dictator and desperate, asserting that the president has exhibited a level of authoritarianism unprecedented in the country's recent history. He also hit out at Meru MPs for allegedly organizing goons to incite mayhem, while thanking the residents of Meru for standing by him during the tense visit. According to the DCP leader, the government's accusation that the opposition lacks a development agenda are baseless and that the current administration is desperate after its own failed plans.
William Ruto has sunk our country so low that he is using goons to run the country. Wakati ya Gen Z, alitumia huyu Sakaja na PS Raymond Omolo kutafuta wahuni, wakakuja wakakoroga Gen Z na kuingia parliament. Wakajaribu kuwekelea ati ni sisi. Juzi tumeona huyu governor amechukua wakora, wamepiga watu, wamepora mali ya watu. Huyu governor hajashikwa mpaka wa leo. Na nimesikia watu ya Kenya Kwanza wakisema ati wale wanapanga kuharibu 25th washikwe. Wale wanapanga bado fanya. Yule amefanya makosa bado. The governor is still walking scot free. Hapa Meru umetuma wahuni. Wewe mwenyewe rais kulikuwa unatembea Nairobi, unatembea na goons. Na ndio tunasema hii Haiti ulituma ati askari kupigana na goons. Wewe mwenyewe nchi yako umeweka goons ndio wanaumiza watu. Ndio tumeanza kuona hii Haiti haikuwa genuine, ilikuwa ni benchmarking on how to create criminal gangs. So sisi tuko na shida. Mheshimiwa, watu wa Bore walikuchagua. Mimi mwenyewe, my mother is from Kibirecha. Hata kama ni madharau, hata kama William Ruto anakutumia vibaya, how do you plan violence against your own brother? I know hamuna shida dancing on the graves of your brothers, but at least you have sunk too low, stopping us to come to the Church of Christ. Wewe mheshimiwa, utachaguliwa na nani? Na mimi niwaambie nyinyi waheshimiwa, before I finish, I warned you. Mimi nilione nyinyi. Nikamwambia William Ruto atawacha nyinyi kwa mataa. Sasa mlima imemwacha na imewacha nyinyi. Yeye ameenda kwa Wajaluo, anaenda kwingine, nyinyi mtaenda wapi? You are sunk. Nyinyi ni watu ya hapa. Jana amepigia soprano kelele, amesema atajipanga nje. Yeye he has an option ya kujipanga nje. Nyinyi watu walitumia hapa kupigana na watu wenu, kukosea watu wenu heshima, mtaenda wapi?
At the same time, the former deputy president launched a fierce attack on the president, accusing him of dishonesty and failing to deliver on key development promises. He was speaking during a church service at the AIPCA in Bori constituency, where he described President Ruto as a pathological liar, alleging the majority of the projects he pledged during his campaign have not been fulfilled. While distancing himself from opposing the president's personal investments, Gachagua raised concern that the only notable projects currently underway in Meru County is the construction of a hotel reportedly linked to the president.
Wabunge wetu wametumika vibaya sana na William Ruto. Ameita Muthoni, amemwambia wewe ambia hii wa Meru ya kwamba animal feeds nimepunguza bei, nimeteremsha. Na huyu Muthoni ni mkulima na anajua haijateremuka, lakini kwa sababu huyu wabunge wetu wamebewa akili na William Ruto, whatever anaambia wafanye ndio wanafanya. Akaambia Muthoni kwenda sema nimeteremsha bei ya animal feeds. Alipigiwa kelele na Wameru. She was very embarrassed. Sasa niseme William Ruto, tafadhali, mimi sina shida na wewe kuinvest Meru, no, but I have a problem ya kwamba the only project imefanyika Meru ni ile hoteli umenunua na unajenga barabara na pesa ya umma. That's my problem. I have no other problem. You can invest if you want, lakini si utufanyie kazi. Si utumie pesa ya umma kusaidia watu ya Meru. Sasa unasema utapeana sete Meru. Nimekuwa na wazee ya Imenti jana usiku wamesema fast kama atapeana sete ni sawa. Lakini tunaweza amini mtu. Amesema leo pale makutano tukimwangalia ati yeye ni Mumeru. Na tunamwangalia na macho. Sasa wazee wanasema hii mtu uongo wake umefika kiwango ati naambia wa Meru yeye ni mume. William Ruto has now become a pathological liar that he believes in his own lies. Ati anasimama pale makutano. Ameangalia wa Meru namna hii kwa macho. Na hawezi ona aibu. Na ni wa Meru wanaambia ati yeye ni Mumeru. Sasa wazee wananiuliza kama anatudanganya ni Mumeru na tunajua si Mumeru. Hii anasema ya city, hii anasema ya barabara, hii anasema ya sha. Kuna mtu anaweza amini? Hao wazee wakaniambia in fact we have a doubt kama kabisa huyu William Ruto hiyo ndio jina yake kamili. It's not, you cannot now confirm whether he is the same person. So wewe rais, maneno ya uongo, you cannot run away with it and nobody can believe you. Because if you can come to Meru and say you are Meru, my friend, hata kwani unatubeba ufala namna gani? Surely. Na una haya. Na nikaona mtu ya Zapraro anafanya kichwa namna hii. Si mliona akifanya kichwa? William Ruto akisema ni Mumeru, Zapraro anasema
At the same time, former Cabinet Secretary for Agriculture and Livestock Development, Mithika Linturi, has strongly taken on President William Ruto, branding him a traitor and accusing him of abandoning the promises he made to Kenyans during his campaign. Speaking during a church service in Bori constituency, Meru County, Linturi said the president had betrayed the trust of those who stood by him during his rise to power, particularly the people of Meru. He also dismissed, Linturi rather was dismissed from the cabinet early this year, warned that President Ruto should not expect political support from Meru in the next general election. He stated that over 400,000 votes the president garnered from the county in the 2022 election will no longer be guaranteed.
Unajua William Ruto alifikiria sababu sisi tulimzungusha huku na tukamwamini ya kwamba sisi ni wajinga sana. Lakini we meant well, sisi ni watu tukiamini hakuna kitu hatuwezi kukupatia. And the problem William Ruto wewe umefanya ni kusaliti sisi. You have betrayed us. You have caused us a lot of pain. Because whatever you told us that you do for the Meru people and the Ngema people, you have not done. We went around, tukaandika mikataba zilikuwa zinaitwa economic forums zile tulikuwa nayo. Economic charter tuliandika. So when tuliandikiana, your business ni kuita wabunge kuwapatia 100 na State House na Karen kwa yule mtu kwa Nkuru, eta Nkuru yao ndio meta Nkuru. Kuambia watu andika report tutafanya nini? Wewe unatukosea ndapo because we agreed and that was the basis of why we elected you. Now I want to announce and tell you the 400,000 votes that we gave you in Meru. Sababu we are number 4 in this country. Kukupatia, my good friend. Usahau na utajua ya kwamba our vote is going to a basket that will make you a one-term president. Ama namna gani?
Meanwhile, National Assembly Speaker Moses Wetangula has called on politicians across the country to engage in issue-based politics and refrain from using insult, warning that rising political hostility risks further dividing the nation at a time when unity is essential for development. Speaking during a church service at Christ the King Cathedral in Bungoma County, Wetangula emphasized the importance of national cohesion and encouraged leaders to tone down their rhetoric. The speaker also appealed to the church to continue praying for the county as it navigates growing political friction. In addition, the speaker reiterated his commitment to the elevation of Bungoma town to city status.
Nchi yetu imekuwa na changamoto na Father amesema tuombee amani, kwa sababu amani haina alternative in life. Tuombee amani, nchi yetu iwe na amani, tuheshimiane. Hata wale viongozi wenye wanaingia upinzani tunawaambia wapunguze lugha chafu na lugha ya matusi. We can disagree but with respect. We can compete but with respect. The fact that I'm competing with you does not make you a bad person. We can all be good people trying to do the same thing differently. Na hiyo ndio tunaomba viongozi wa kisiasa. Hao watoto tunaguza wanaangalia vile tuna behave kama viongozi. Kama sisi tunatusianana hadharani maneno chafu, maneno ambayo haistahili kutamkwa na mtu mzima, we are teaching our children bad manners and we must change. So tuombee viongozi. Tuombee viongozi, hata wale wanataka kuwa viongozi wa nchi. Leta sera zenu. Usiwe tu ukisimama unauliza wewe unataka kufanyia nini Kenya Kasongo? Wewe unataka kufanyia nini Kenya one term? Wewe unataka kufanyia nini Kenya Ruto must go? That is not a policy. The policy is what you want to do differently from whoever is there is doing. Ndio watu waseme kama wewe alifanya hii vizuri, huyu ataweza kufanya vizuri zaidi.
You know, there's a lot of stuff that happened yesterday, including the attack, the U.S. Attack on some of the assets in Iran, nuclear, facilities, nuclear bomb development facilities. And President Trump, I remember yesterday, was saying that his forces, American forces, had obliterated Iran's key nuclear facilities. But you know what happened? Actually, I have seen a statement from Khamenei, who is the supreme leader of Iran, who says that the Western forces fell for smoke. And he says that they fell for a decoy, and asserted that Tehran is firmly in control of its uranium and strategic resources. He says that they had already moved the uranium, in March, anticipating the attack that was going to come. And so they say now it's their time and it's their time to exert revenge on those who attacked them. This is what the president of the USA had said yesterday.
Nuclear enrichment capacity and a stop to the nuclear threat posed by the world's #1 state sponsor of terror. Tonight, I can report to the world that the strikes were a spectacular military success. Iran's key nuclear enrichment facilities have been completely and totally obliterated. Iran, the bully of the Middle East, must now make peace. If they do not, future attacks will be far greater and a lot easier.
Okie dokes, let's take a look at the newspapers. We go for a short break as I drink my water, and then when we come back, we check out what the papers are saying. Sindio? Aye. All right. The Daily Nation, State House gets another 890 million for renovations. This is how it reads. State House gets 890 million for renovations. I wonder what kind of renovations are going on at State House, because last time, excuse me, even the Deputy President's office residents got 2 billion. Now they've gotten 890 million renovations. I hope this is something worthwhile. I really hope this is something worthwhile. And then you have Gen Z protests that changed Kenya. On Wednesday, the country will be celebrating or marking the anniversary of the Gen Z protests. And there are definitely going to be protests in the country. We just hope that no one is going to lose their lives. And then we have how buoyant Kenya Kwanza became casualty of protests. And then we also have Caswell, suit-clad Gen Z, darling who became a villain. Makaure says he no longer participates in protests, that he's not directly involved in planning. This young man basically, you can clearly say without a shadow of doubt that he used this opportunity to create his political trajectory and career. Because right now, I bet he's smiling all the way to the bank. The ching-ching has come. He now wears a suit and has the cash to prove that he's got, the suit is not just a decoy. So you have exactly, I like the way State House looks today. It's a flat roof. I love the way it looks right now. Kind of like White House. That's how it looks like. I don't mind the new look. I just hope that the money that is being spent there is worthwhile. Kibaki Estate row, Mary Wamboi faces summons. These guys have started fighting for the president's estate. Former Fire MP Mary Wamboi is among 14 individuals who may testify in a succession case over the estate of former President Mwai Kibaki. The High Court is currently inquiring into the rightful heirs of his wealth and true value of his assets. Fresh court filings reveal that the controversy surrounding Ms. Wamboi's relationship with Kibaki, his health status, and the medical treatment he received before his death are expected to come up during the hearings. Kibaki's family, led by daughter Judith Wajiko Kibaki, is locked in a legal tussle with two individuals, Mr. Jacob Ochola and Ms. JNL, who claim to be the former president's children and are seeking legal recognition as heirs. Mr. Ochola and Ms. JNL filed an application at the High Court's Family Division in Nairobi requesting that Ms. Wamboi be summoned to testify. Well, hey, Aki, just make sure you write a will and you state who are the people who are going to inherit your property. Just write a will. It will save your wife, your kids, a lot of hassle. It will save your people a lot of hassle. EACC to auction 428 million worth of property seized from Obado, former Governor Obado. Hey, my friend, 428 million. It just shows that the proceeds of crime, crime does not pay. So he had gotten to a place where he was living comfortable, and now property worth 428 is going to be auctioned. Then at the back page you have Kenya Police have a maiden league title. Yep. Then let's take a look at the Star newspaper. They say they're fresh, independent, and different. Let's see how different they are. Pain of 3 billion daily loss in protests as huge demo planned. And then you have church members slain Gen Z. Church members slain Gen Z protesters. Hey, what do they mean? Parents, guardians of victims killed at during last year's Gen Z protest at the interdenominational prayer service at All Saints Cathedral. And then you have police plan for Gen Z anniversary protests. Iran-Israel conflict foretells economic storm for Kenya. Diaspora inflows shield the shilling from Israel-Iran war. Really? And then we see pain of 3 billion daily loss in protests as huge demo planned. Sabula, a volunteer educator now driving Kenya's tourism industry. Small-scale farmers to benefit from improved funding model. These are good stories. Then you have Ruto, Gachagua battle for Mount Kenya East vote block. Sakaja distances himself from goons, says chaos not his style. Yeah? You know the strangest thing? It's the goons themselves who are saying. You know, if it was somebody else who was saying that it is Sakaja who planned this, it would be something else. But the goons, the guys who are sent, in fact, they walked right in front of the office saying, mission accomplished. Anyway. Then the Standard newspaper has a very interesting headlines. It says, betrayers of Gen Z. Then it has Kashmuel there, and it has a former Prime Minister Raila Odinga. And it has an insert there where Raila says, we cannot burn the country down to achieve change. Dialogue is the way forward, and I use the opportunity to push for reforms. Those calling it betrayal misunderstand the bigger picture. And it says, for a long time, Raila Odinga stood out as the voice of common Kenyan in the face of repressive governments. So it was no surprise that during the height of last year's Gen Z protest, a video of a young woman asking the former Prime Minister to step aside so the new generation could hold the government accountable went viral. The cost was heavy, with several Gen Z protesters killed or maimed. But the real shock came when Raila quickly struck a deal with President William Ruto, a move widely seen as a betrayal of the noble cause of good governance he had championed for decades. Today, although the youth continue to push for change, many feel let down. They see Raila as a betrayer of their dream for a new Kenya. Then you remember that lawyer, there's a guy who, during the recent protests, was seen in the streets being attacked by the room-wielding goons that are said to have been hired by Governor Sakaja. He was actually a lawyer, and in the Standard, that page number 2, he says, I was attacked in broad daylight as police watched. I don't know whether he's going to sue. We'll see. Testing isn't weakness. New drive targets rising HIV risks among men. Then there's a musician called Samido. I don't know whether you know him. Samido is a Kikuyu musician, or rather his songs are done in Kuk. He's been an officer of the Kenya Police. I remember there was a warrant of arrest that was issued claiming that he had abdicated duty. He was a deserter. Then he released on social media the papers that he was given by his bosses, allowing him to travel out of the country. So, well, he's coming back to the country and is hinting at resignation from the service. Bane. From hope to heart, how Gen Z felt betrayed and abandoned by Raila Odinga and lawmakers. Then you have 2 decades on, police reforms falter under politics and brutality. Then used car importers challenge KRA's new tax formula. By the way, it's going to be very expensive to buy cars, once the new laws come into play. Used car traders have filed a lawsuit at a high court in Mombasa to stop the Kenya Revenue Authority's new tax rule on imported cars from taking effect from the 1st of July. The case was filed on Friday. They say that, the new tax formula discriminates against low and middle income car buyers by drastically increasing levies on small fuel-efficient cars such as Toyota Vitz, Mazda Demio, and Suzuki Swift, widely used for personal and commercial transport. And then by contrast, they said luxury vehicles such as the Lexus LX 570 and Volkswagen models are set to enjoy tax reductions under the same rule. Haya. Nakuru journalists have gotten therapy to manage work-related stress. State goons links fuel fresh fears of rising unrest and political anarchy. And then MPs are set to grill CS Mutua over foreign job bias. Pending bills. 3.7 pending bills threaten IEBC operation ahead of 2027 election. Pending bills of 3.7 billion. Wacha ni toe alama ya mshangao. Review hardship allowance for teachers, MPs say. It's the end of the road for City Stars and Talanta. Nakwambia. Maneno ni saa kuisha. All right, we'll bring down the curtains on the show as I try to see whether we're going to get a couple of things happening today. We have Gatuzi, which will be looking at some of the things that are happening in the county, and we'll also look at the scoreboard, see some of the happenings in sports today. So do have yourself a lovely morning.